If you guys have questions, just holler.
Holla. Holla back, girl.
And Mikey has whole presentation at some point here.
It's like 5 minutes.
Cool, 5-minute nap time.
Darn it, I was trying to make you nervous.
Well, I mean, I have an assignment and a project and an essay that you guys are going to have to write afterwards, so get ready.
Overachiever! Right? Put it on the singular for me so they don't have to watch. Oh, maybe it is. It just took forever. Okay.
Yeah, it really does take a second sometimes.
It really does. Okay, so this is the third initiation class. This is the class is entitled History of Witchcraft and Paganism. Yes, it is. I'm going to tell you ahead of time. It is a very basic overview of the history of witchcraft, because I've been telling I've been telling everybody. I have enough information. Yeah, there's so much information that I could probably teach like an 8-hour class on it.
You see the books behind her, right?
Yeah. So I am going to tell you that this class, I'm going to start instituting the pagan library from here. So if you want to check out any of the books that I have, I pulled the books that have to do with the history of witchcraft, at least the ones that I had on hand that I could find right away. And they're here, and there's just like a sign-up sheet so I know who has what book and stuff and what date it was checked out, just so I know.
Yes, you can keep track.
And yeah. You are welcome to check it out. I would say no more than like 2 books at a time, just so we can kind of keep track of everything. And the other thing is, if you have Goodreads.com.
I do.
Probably at least 80% of my books, I haven't done it in a little while, but at least 80% of my books are in Goodreads. And I will try to get you guys the link of my owned books so that you can look up what books. And if you know ahead of time, like, hey, I really would like to try to, if you can find this book. I'm not guaranteeing that I can find every book because some of them are in tubs and stuff in storage. But I do try to compartmentalize them. So if you let me know what book you're looking for, I can look for it and
I can
pull it for you.
that if we need to look for
that
stuff.
would be
and all
awesome.
that.
So there, but like I said, I do have a bunch of them here to start out with. So if you want to borrow, and that goes for you, if you're not in New York, I can always, send you one if you want one, and no problem.
Okie dokie.
Yep, not just locals only.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I do have notes for this class, which you guys will be getting eventually. I wasn't able to organize them as much as I needed to, but it will be organized by probably Tuesday, I would say at the latest. And so you guys will have access to the notes for it. And then the homework also I probably will give out on Tuesdays, I guess. I hope.
My dumbass was like Tuesday. Is today's day tomorrow?
No, thank goodness.
Don't worry, I'm way off on my days of the week lately too.
Oh, it's rough. This morning, Rain was singing "Happy Thursday." Happy Thursday.
Mark was convincing me tomorrow was Sunday. I forgot.
I was like, "What?"
Tomorrow is Sunday.
Tomorrow
is Sunday.
There's too much to do. Steven, hi, sweetheart. Yes. Now, I did make this class public because I'm pretty sure that the people who are here were okay with it being public. We have streamlined things a little bit. And so the people who were not okay with it, I'm pretty sure are not here. So I'm going to make them public if we can. All right. So this is the history of the craft. I'm going to start. This sounds really silly, but, I never know. And let me preface this by saying, when I teach with the understanding that you know nothing. It doesn't mean that I think you know nothing. It just means that I don't have to backtrack it because somebody didn't know, something that, a lot of people might know. But so we'll start from, the very basic so that there isn't question. And the very basic, because we're starting with kind of a timeline kind of thing of the history of witchcraft, I need to let you know that a lot of pagan books, including a bunch of the ones that I have, and a lot of other books really now, are generally not fans of marking the passage of time with BC or AD, which means year of our Lord in Latin. So you will see BCE, before Common Era, or CE, Common Era, which is the same numbers. It's the same, like the year is the same. It's just different letters. It means the same thing. It's just, we don't normally prefer
It's very prevalent now, actually.
mark time in Christianity's way of doing things. So that, just so you know, that's where it comes from if you don't know what BCE is and CE. Okay, so we're going to start with Paleolithic times. So we really are going back to start from the beginning. Just so, because that's really where our history started from, where this whole thing started from. And so the year is 25,000 BCE. The last ice age is retreating. Man has learned the use of fire, organized hunting, rudimentary language. The wheel is still over 10,000 years away. So there's no wheel yet. Loose tribes of nomads roam the plains that will one day be known as Europe, Africa, and Asia. Still a slave to the whims of nature, man must make sense of his world to survive. Early man worked hard to stay alive. He fashioned bone, wood, and stone into simple tools. He learned the cycle of the seasons, the way of the animals, and the nature of plants. He developed a belief system of animism in which natural forces and events were possessed of a divine spirit. So let me say that again, because that is an important, that's like the beginnings. That's really the first known nature of pagan spirituality is called animism. It is when natural forces and events are possessed of a divine spirit. That's the belief system. The trees, the rivers, the rocks possessed a soul, and even the thunderstorms and other naturally occurring events possessed a soul or a spirit. So if you think about it, it's really like, if you're looking at, think of the cavemen and stuff, they believed that, the tree was kind of a sentient being. They believed that the river was like a sentient being and did things for a purpose. They believed that if there was a storm coming, that the storm was sentient, was spiritually divine, and was coming for a purpose. It had a thought process of why it was coming.
So there's such a thing as animist minus the weather part?
Yes.
Because that's kind of me.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. And
because I think the weather just goes into like Gaia and Mother Earth and washing and doing what it needs to do, not that it's its own thing.
Absolutely. And definitely you can see that's why we started here, is because you can see that a lot of our belief systems really comes from the very beginnings of man and kind of grew spiritually from there.
We have to eat this baby so that way our grass grows.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, but my favorite part, and this is probably jumping just a little ahead, so I'll be very quick, but is how some of these really old rudimentary thoughts that seem so simple to us now, we've kept them, but we've grown them into more emotional or spiritual meanings along the same line as the survival or whatever that it was initially.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. Absolutely. And that's why we call our paths the way of the old, or the way of the old ones, or the path of the old ways. It's because a lot of what we believe came from, the very basic nature of man and life. Man was aware of the balance of nature, the duality of life, male and female, day and night, life and death. He understood that one was not complete without the other. From the understanding of this duality grew the belief in male and female aspects of divinity, of deity, of God, goddess. The earth, provider of all, was seen as female, the mother, the earth goddess. Caves were her womb. She provided food and water for her children. The forces of nature, lightning, wind, the rutting stag, were seen as male. And as awareness of the masculine and feminine aspects of life developed, a pattern emerged, and the wheel of the year, as we know it today, began to take shape. So they started noticing the cycles of things. Lunar cycles were observed, and the paths of visible stars and planets started to be recognized. Oops, sorry, buddy.
He's like, wow, what?
Right? He's really mad at me from last night. I got up at 5 a.m. like immediately as soon as he came to bed but anyway.
He looks absolutely disgusted.
Yeah. He's really mad at me. The earliest known goddess images, which were carved around 20,000 years ago, were used as symbolic deities to ensure plentiful food and fertility, which of course was, the building blocks of how they survived. So their very survival, they counted on the goddess deity to feed them, to make sure that they had, they were able to find food and shelter, and were able to continue having babies and being fertile and all that. Cave paintings depicting successful hunts were created to add power to the hunt. Masks, skulls of powerful beasts, and other animal symbols were worn as images of power and strength. To wear the skin of a bear was to become that bear, to harness his strength and vitality. From these beginnings, the awareness of magic grew. At first seen as a great mystery, the domain of spirits, man soon learned that magical ability could be developed and harnessed. Some people were gifted with psychic abilities. Some could predict events, give advice, perform rites of magic. And with that, I wanted to say too, did I put it in here? No. So this is when I did a big teaching, and of course I could not find the big teaching. I swear it's on my YouTube channel someplace. This is called The Sorcerer. This is one of the earliest cave paintings of a horned god. They believe that it is a painting of a shaman or a priest who wore horns to embody the horned god, and to do like a protection type of ritual. It's called The Sorcerer. This is actually a sketch of the drawing, because the drawing is faded and the horns were actually not drawn in. They were created with the cracks in the cave, which was like a way to save on the work that they already had to do when they were creating cave drawings. This was in France, and if you see it in your notes, I put in there the name of the town, which is like Trois Frères Eriguet, something like that.
It's in France. Mackenzie knows French.
Yes, it's in France. So this is actually a sketch by Henry Bruhl, who is the one who found the cave drawing. And they believe that this was made around 13,000 BCE.
Back then, would you say it was? And I don't. Maybe
up to the cameras.
Maybe Mark can reach up. Was this still more of a fear of the gods kind of era?
This began to be, yes, mostly. It began to switch over, but it was only, we'll talk about when we get to a little bit further on, it began to be only the priests could communicate with the deities. So it was a little bit of both still.
Hey, Mama.
Yes.
Joe messaged me like a half hour ago saying to let him in.
Oh. Scroll.
I don't know if he's like...
because, if we don't scroll,
you got it.
We can't see him. Oops.
I don't know if he's still there because it was like a half hour ago.
Where is he?
Yeah, if you use the scroll marker right there.
It's kind of hard to do this with the left hand.
I know, sorry. Yeah. There he is.
The little wheel works.
Hi,
Joe.
Sorry, Joe. Sorry. The thing was such that we didn't see that anybody else was waiting.
Oh, I don't want to edit her display name. How do I put you back to the main thing?
Scroll back up. Yep.
It's like
and then
over in this, right?
Nope.
No, it's just that.
actually that. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Hopefully.
Oh, I don't want you anymore. Go away. Yes.
There we go. Okay.
I can't twist like that, hon.
Okay. So we move into the early Europe, which is about 15,000 BCE, which is actually when the sorcerer was painted, about the early European age. Mankind learns the path of the sun and moon, learns to distinguish and cultivate different herbs. Let me go back here. Yes. No. Yes. Yeah, I'm going to read this first. Okay. To cultivate different herbs, the god and goddess become diverse, prolific figures and an essential part of common life. Different customs and rituals are developed to mirror and enhance the cycles of the year for fertility, protection, prosperity, which drove the need for a priesthood. We'll talk about the priesthood in just a second. Let me catch up here. Where are we? From the beginnings, the awareness of magic grew. Some people were born with or gifted with psychic abilities. Some could predict events, give advice, perform rites of magic, and they then became the priests, the people who were better connected to deity. Civilization prospered. With the development of agriculture, there was a further awareness of the goddess. She now watched over the fertility of the crops, as well as the prosperity of tribes and animals. The year naturally divided into two halves at this time. They didn't see like spring, summer, winter, fall. They saw summer and winter. And that was it. And you'll see that if you study Druidism, they see two halves of the year. Two halves of the year. Summer. In the summer, crops were grown and harvested, and the goddess predominated. In the winter, tribes resorted to hunting when the god held sway. With these two predominant archetypes watching over the tribes, the other animistic spirits, such as lightning and tides, were seen as lesser deities or as aspects of the goddess and the god. As mankind's awareness developed, so did religion. This is what was evolving slowly and naturally through the centuries. As people spread across Europe and Asia, they took their gods with them, some tribes settling down and creating local deities, other moving on to distant horizons. Not only different gods, but different types of religions began to emerge to fit the needs and demands of the region. So you can see why, a civilization in Europe is going to have different god and goddesses than somebody over in Egypt, because they're going to have way different needs. So, I mean, they wouldn't have a need for a big sun god, really. The same, not the same as like Ra would be for Egypt, because the sun was always.
Yeah, but it's funny how there are still so many crossovers between across pantheons.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So go through here. Okay. So early Europe, around 15,000 BCE, saw great developments in spiritual understanding. Mankind had learned the paths of the sun and the moon, had learned to distinguish and cultivate different herbs. He knew which animals possessed different characteristics and how to tap into their spirit. Did I read this already? I feel like I did. No, they just repeated it. That's annoying. Okay. And how to tap into their spirit. The goddess and god were no longer just fertility symbols or hunting charms. They had become diverse, prolific figures and an essential part of common life. Different customs and rituals were developed to mirror. Oh, yes, I did read this. To mirror and enhance the cycles of the year and the needs of the people. With the different developments of rituals for fertility, for protection, for prosperity, there eventually developed a priesthood. So this is really the first priesthood was in the early Europeans. The priests were a select few who were more able to produce the desired results when directing rituals. They were more able to offer sage advice when needed. In some areas of Europe, the ritual leaders or priests and priestesses became known as Wicce, W-I-C-C-E, Wicce, which is then where Wicca, the name Wicca came from when Gerald decided to start his brand of paganism. That's where he got it from. It's from these early priests.
Mama, that translates to wise, correct?
You're jumping ahead. That is one of the translations. There actually are two, and we'll talk about it because there's some debate as to whether it's a Saxon word or Germanic word.
Cool.
But yes, one of them is that. Yes. Indeed, by 5000 BCE, no tribal king or elder would dream of making any important decisions before consulting Wicce. The Wicce worked for the common people as well, midwifing births, mixing curative herbs, remedies, and acting as messengers between the people and the spirit world. The word Wicce, curiously enough, has two meanings. It can mean wise ones and also means shapers of reality. It depends on whether you follow the Saxon or the Germanic definitions.
I kind of dig shapers of reality.
Right? So one very specifically put out there that they were able to do some kind of energy work to shape their own reality. That you remember well. Shut up, Stephen. So that's the early Saxon and Germanic periods when that developed. We're gonna kind of jump ahead. As I said, this is going to be kind of a basic overview because I don't want to drone on for hours, although I could. There's lots of information, but we don't want to get stuck in one place.
Rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today's going to be the start of rabbit holes, I think.
Yeah. There's lots and lots of different rabbit holes you can go through. So for sure. We're going to skip to the Druids. So the Druids came about, they believe, in about 2000 BCE. In the Celtic lands, in what would become France, England, and Ireland, the Druid path was growing. From what we can piece together, the Druids were a revered caste of priests, both male and female. They oversaw much of the spiritual growth in their area. They developed arts of divination, stonemasonry, and herbal lore. Druids were religious leaders as well as legal authorities, adjudicators, lore keepers, medical professionals, and political advisors. So let's break that down. This is all of the things that not all of, but this is many of the things that they discussed that the Druids were a part of, were responsible for in their communities. They developed divination. So that is the Ohms, O-G-H-A-M. The little sticks that they had their own kind of almost runes on that each one meant a different, or was done from a different tree and meant a different thing. They believed that the spirits of the tree were for very specific things. And so when they developed the Ohm system, they used that to divine the future and a whole bunch of other things too. They were adept at stonemasonry. So they did do some of the standing stones as we know them. However, the big standing stones, like Stonehenge and stuff, were before them. So whatever was before them actually created Stonehenge and some of the other like really big ones. And so it kind of goes back to, okay, so there had to be something. If you look at Stonehenge, if you've studied Stonehenge at all, if you look at Stonehenge at all, you know that I've never been there, but 3D and I've studied it and everything. But when you go, it is very specifically, you could tell it is very specifically set up to follow the wheel of the year, to follow the solstices, to follow the equinoxes. And so very obviously at some point before the Druids, they were following that. They were following the cycles of the year. They were using that either as some kind of timepiece or to honor the deities of those time points of the year.
There is a documentary for Stonehenge on Disney Plus that goes into all that.
Disney Plus, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because they have
Cool.
National Geographic.
Yep.
I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
My parents have been to Stonehenge.
I'll just kill myself.
And I love them because in true fashion, they came home with T-shirts that say Stonehenge rocks.
Did they get to
Of
see
course
the
they did.
birds?
I have no
They
idea.
have in Ireland. They have a type of crow that's like white and black, and there's one that's like known for hanging out of stone.
They didn't mention it. I'll have to ask.
You know what's interesting is that if you look at different cultures in those ancient times, different cultures had different sacred sites, not just Stonehenge.
Oh yeah.
There's like pyramids that were built, and then at a certain solstice, the light of the sun would go into the pyramid and illuminate the pyramid on the inside. There's different. That's a whole wormhole all of itself of sacred sites, but there's very interesting stories.
Yeah, with the Egyptians, they usually used mirrors in the hallways to reflect the light in to light up the whole room. And they usually did the gold lining to actually brighten it up more.
Yes, yep, absolutely. There's a specific Mayan temple in South America that that same thing. It's like a keyhole that went only on the, I believe it's the solstice. I'm trying to remember if it's the solstice or the equinoxes. I can't remember, but at the exact time of solstice, it will illuminate the carving that says this is the solstice. So yes, very interesting. So obviously, and also we have I don't know if anybody else knows this, but we have standing stones here in America too that are from Native American cultures had standing stones. I think I'm trying to remember Pennsylvania.
We have a few different things like that in the States. I think it's all along the East Coast. There are these ritual bath tunnels that line up with the solstice. So on the solstice, they would go through and do ritual baths when the sun was up and shining through and everything. They had the pits, the water, and everything. I'm never going to find that documentary ever again. But
there's a show that used to be on. It was History Channel, but it was History 2 when they had the second one.
Right.
It was called America Unearthed.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yes,
love
that's
that
a good
show.
series.
That's
I
a
remember
great
that
show.
one.
Yep.
And the start of the show was basically him proving that it wasn't Columbus.
Yeah.
But it goes into all other kinds of lore and he goes through like some of these tunnels. He goes to some of these other Stonehenge-esque standing stone
You know
things.
what? I want to go see like the Leif Erikson stuff.
Yeah.
Out here.
Yeah,
And then
right.
in Germany, they have like a big temple for Odin, which I thought was really interesting. I was like, Germany?
Yeah.
What are you doing, baby?
No, it makes sense to me. Because that's just like
A lot of
like
the
a
Germanic.
quick south trip in the boat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they have like this huge temple for Odin. I didn't know about it. I watched this one guy on YouTube that
It'd be
went there,
awesome to
and he
go
would like
to.
make his videos in front of it. And I was like, where the fuck is he at?
Yeah.
Got to go over during Oktoberfest though. Make it
Yeah.
really
It's not
worthwhile.
October though.
Right.
Just saying.
There's
Yeah.
some cool places. There's also a temple of Sekhmet. Is it in Arizona, Mama?
Yes.
Arizona.
Tempe.
I think is it ours?
Yeah, it's in Arizona. I can't remember if it's up on the hill.
I think it's Arizona. But
a hill of something or other. Yeah, I
yeah,
could look it
it's
up.
very interesting.
Yeah.
It's a huge temple dedicated to Sekhmet, and they run it, and they have it running and everything, and people can visit there and everything.
Have you ever heard? I'm sure you've seen the commercials for that Gaia Network.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not paying that for it, but
Exactly, me neither.
yeah, but they keep showing a commercial and they talk about things like Stonehenge and how they're looking. And I can see this as a rabbit hole for myself.
Right.
They're looking into the acoustics and the sounds that they believe the ancient cultures may have been able to get to. And like these harmonizing sounds and what they could do just with sound alone.
Oh, cool.
Oh my God, I've seen that commercial.
Right?
To that email. They had said something around the lines that the ancient Egyptians used these sound waves and these instruments to create a certain sound wave to the point that they could even make themselves lose weight.
Yeah.
And
Well,
be able to like kind of defy gravity in a way.
Mm-hmm. I sent
So that
it
was very
to
interesting.
Mikey, I think.
What's this
I think
called?
so.
Gaia Network? No way you can't do a free trial, guys.
probably,
gotta be
but
probably like
it's
week
like
or
a
something. It's-
fortune though.
Yeah,
Like it's
really
crazy expensive.
When you
I've-
it's crazy.
I've
I'll-
watched some
I'll look
videos,
on
do,
Shady
like
Show.
reviews of it, of
Yeah.
like, reviews of it, and half of the shit on there, it just looks like one of those. We're just gonna slapdash something together to get the money out of these witchy folks.
Yeah.
But the thing I sent you earlier, Mikey, like a week ago ish.
Yeah.
You know how you go on even Insight Timer and they have, what do they call them? The binaural beats, like sounds, or
Yeah.
I'm probably saying it wrong, but
Yep.
there's people using that to get high.
Yeah, I remember you. Yeah,
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, where they're having two different sounds come in and doing all that. So the fact that that came up too and all that, I'm like, God, there really is something to be said about what they may have been doing.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
you have to be careful with them because, and they say they have warnings on them all the time. Do not drive and listen to this with earphones and stuff because it definitely affects.
It's a 7-day trial.
It's not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's
Or
definitely
$11.99
affects.
Especially what Mikey was saying.
It's
If
only $11.99 a month.
It's $9 over here.
I'm on the actual website. It's $11.99
But,
a month.
like Mikey and I talked about it.
99
If a lot of it
€99
looks like crap
$99
though,
for
Yeah,
the year.
exactly.
Then-
Is it gonna be worth it, or is it?
that's what
Actual
Mikey said.
thing.
So
Yeah.
I didn't look too
But
much
you
further
can
into
do
it.
free
Probably like
a
But I'm
weekly.
sure if there's real
Watch on
science to
laptops
what
and
they're
your
doing
phone,
on the sounds and
tablets,
that can be
all
found
the
somewhere
Oh,
else
yeah,
too.
right. Absolutely. There's lots and lots and lots of different places you can find.
I like to imagine what they may have actually been capable of back then.
Hell yeah.
What's the stuff in Mexico? We went to Mexico when I was like 12 to go see these big temples. I
Cool.
don't remember what it was.
Yeah,
They do
there's
like
the
Aztecs?
you time up
Yes, the Aztecs. They were like, let's go see them.
is there's some in very south of Mexico, but it's usually even more
we went
south
on a
of
cruise
that
to
too.
go, and then we took like this big boat, and my cousin Bradley got sun poisoning and like ruined the whole trip. My aunts were like, "This is grand." We were like little kids; we didn't care.
Right? Don't you wish you pay more attention now?
Yeah,
I
I
think that
know.
all the time stuff from when I was a kid. There's so much that, like I said, there's so many rabbit holes that can like lead you from here that we could go into a ton. Like I'll try not to rabbit hole too much. Like the Stonehenge, the stones of Stonehenge are made out of Preseli bluestone, which is not native to any place around there. So, I mean, as old as it is, they had to figure out how to get those huge stones.
That Gaia, the one in South America. What I can't think of the name of it. The statue. Where I sent you the link that it was in South America. It's a South America Gaia that's like one of the oldest statues, kind of.
Willendorf.
Yes, the Willendorf Gaia. They believe the stone, because they've been doing scientific studying, was from Italy. Because they have gone and done stone samples and found it in the mountains in Italy. Like identical matches to the same stone.
Yeah. So,
Aliens.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the things that they talk about for the existence of stuff like the Atlanteans and the Lemurians and that kind of thing is things that come up around the world that are like that, or the things in the ocean that, should not be there. There's all kinds of stuff that you can find, but I'm not going to rabbit hole too much because we could go.
There's not enough time in the day.
Yeah, no, there really isn't. But really cool, lots of interesting stuff for sure. Okay, so that was just stone masonry. Herbal lore. They were one of the very first to really dig into what herbs did what, and they had
I think he has
How you doing, baby?
He keeps going to the door.
it's
Milo's walked in before.
you have?
Yeah.
Just be real. He literally pulled away from me the other day because I wasn't ready for it. He saw a squirrel, and like I went to put the brake on, and that was probably dumb because he immediately ripped the whole thing right out of my hand. I'm like,
He
shit.
just like keeps coming and sitting, and then he looks at me, and I look at him, and then he realizes I'm not moving, and then he goes back over there.
Damn it! Why aren't you paying attention to me? What the hell did I say?
Herbal lore.
Oh, herbal lore. Yeah.
Herbal.
So,
Can you imagine the early days of herbal lore? How many people died?
right?
Like,
Let's try this
seriously.
for this.
I want to know who
Oops.
tripped. Like,
Yeah.
who was like, yo, man, I'm seeing stuff. Get away from my face. I
Yeah.
wanna know.
Right?
All around, like the early
Yeah.
study of that.
Yeah.
Like, I have a great appreciation
You know,
because
there is, you know what? Now you know I guess I'm not mine. In the 70s, there was this scientist that was like studying psychedelics and acid in general.
Yeah.
You know, because it's the 70s, right? He was murdered.
Ty, come here.
But he has a huge,
hardest
like, he's
one
got a
out
bunch of books and articles and stuff that you can
The
still
hardest
find, but I can't remember his name. I'll remember it eventually. I'll send it to you guys. But he was murdered, and I'm obsessed with him.
there's
I'm not going to follow you with it. Just get over here.
Have you
time.
seen the
You're
Kill
a
John
pain.
Lennon TikTok chat?
No.
Where it's like
Does that have to do with paganism?
No.
Okay, let's not because I will squirrel all kinds of other places, and I don't want. This is already going to be a long.
At this point, everybody would look if they knew what it was.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so you know how to work block, unlock. Beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, he took him up. I laughed my ass off. You're so lucky you
That
caught
so did
yourself.
not happen.
That's an acid trip.
Yeah, he took him the day before Ostara.
Oh. Yeah. All right. Yes. Oh, herbal lore. So yeah, I mean, there's a huge knowledge. They had a huge knowledge of that. The issue, and we'll talk about this a little bit more as we go down the list here, but the issue is that they did not believe that they were allowed to write their history. So they taught each other all the herbal lore and all that, but there is no written history. And so a lot of what we know about, let me just keep going because I talk about all this and then I get myself going and then I have to go back over it. Hold on. We'll get there and then I'll talk. Druids were religious leaders as well as legal authorities, adjudicators. So they were like the judges and juries. Lore keepers, medical professionals. They were the doctors and nurses, the political advisors. They told the kings and queens and stuff what they should be doing in order to conquer new nations or to hang on to their own nations.
They were essentially the educated ones.
Yes, they were
Right.
the educated ones. Absolutely. And again, if you think of what they had to do to be educated, considering they did not write anything down, that was a big deal. They were the magicians and the intermediaries with the Fae. Specifically, they had a relationship with the Fae, and if you were having a problem with Fae, you would go to the druid and ask, "What the hell do I do? They keep taking my shit."
Krista, call your local druid.
Yeah, go call Benny.
Well, Ben.
Tell him what the hell to do now.
All he told me was to not put metal or iron stakes on the corner of my shit.
No, he has to
He
come
said
out
it
and do
would
something.
piss
Damn
him
it.
off.
Tell him to be a good druid.
Tell them to come out and do a rain dance.
They were meteorologists, and legends tell us they could bring about snowstorms, mists, and blinding clouds. The Druids knew the lore of the sun and moon and the languages of the oak, rowan, and mistletoe, and ley lines, which is what we're going to talk about for a minute. Ley lines. Ley lines are patterns of force deep within the earth, alignments between places of power, which may be magnetic, magical, or psychic in nature. Another definition is, because there's many different definitions, ley lines are lines that crisscross around the globe like latitude and longitudinal lines that are dotted with monuments and natural landforms and carry along with them rivers of supernatural energy. Along these lines, at the places they intersect, there are pockets of concentrated energy that can be harvested by certain individuals. And there, I have a website. There's actually an app that is associated with this website. It is leylines.net, ley being spelled Ley, leylines.net. And you can see the ley lines of your area or of other areas through that website. Ley lines are,
In other words, they're just energetical portals.
correct.
Okay.
I just had a total epiphany with space.
Yes.
They're finding now that there are celestial bodies in space that move in perfect unison together and are obviously connected, that are so far from each other and have nothing to do with it. It's totally ley lines.
Right, the energetic, absolutely.
Because there's like with all kinds of
connection.
different things, and they're seeing these movements and stuff that make no sense
Yeah.
scientifically, that they move together.
Would totally make sense. That's awesome. Now,
I think that's when the web of connection, I feel like all that kind of has to do with that web of connection that Mama talks about, that we can tap into, and therefore through those energy cords we can then have energy and send energy, because then you send it through the cord, right? And the cord always goes another way.
Absolutely.
It has to keep going another way. So
I totally, absolutely agree. I will tell you, because ley lines, the concept of ley lines is fairly controversial still.
Mm-hmm.
They came up with the modern version of what they say ley lines is. The Druids used ley lines and knew about ley lines and charted ley lines, apparently back in their day.
Did they know how they charted them? No, of course not.
Nope, because they weren't going to let the Romans stuff know, which is why we'll talk about what we know of them is from their conquerors. So it's very little of the information that they had, which if we only knew everything that they had. But the modern knowledge of what we know of ley lines in the 1920s, I think it was 22 or something, there was a guy named Arthur or something or other who started trying to map out the ley lines and started talking about the ley lines. He actually wasn't talking about energetic ley lines, although that's what ended up occurring. He was talking about straight lines between large historical sacred sites that he believed were like trade routes and stuff. And then he started noticing that they were lines that certain things were happening along these lines, and he made a whole book about it. And in the 1960s, all of his work got trashed by archaeologists.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they came out and really trashed that work completely.
Did you take Milo for a walk?
No. Does I come here?
What's that?
You got
the bag.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Ty, come here.
And said that everything that he said was not true, and they went through, and because of course in metaphysics it's the naysayers have a need for kind of proof that we don't necessarily believe in everything they believe, and they didn't believe everything we believe. But recently it has come back, and they have talked about much more about the energetic lines and how certain kinds of phenomenon happen much more frequently along these lines. So I'll leave it up to you whether to believe in them or not. I personally do believe in ley lines. I think living along ley lines with most of our lives, because this area is a huge place that several ley lines intersect here, and they talk about a lot Lilydale too. At some point, I would really love to do a field trip to Lilydale, because there's so much information there about
Mama. Do they where you just said where the ley lines meet? Is that anything similar to like vortex or like what they call spiritual nexuses and stuff? Is that then a center point of different ley lines joining each other?
Correct. Yes, exactly that. And that creates a vortex of power that certain people can tap into.
I wonder if there's like cave trails underneath the crust.
There's a lot of that
There are a lot of caves going on,
especially through the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah. Have you seen Hellier and all that? Because they talk a lot
No,
about
I
that.
actually
Watch
just
Hellier.
had to ask Jess what the name of the show was because I watched like one episode and then I forgot the name of the show.
Yeah, watch
I
Hellier.
haven't finished it.
Were
I've
they
watched
yellow
a
on the
few
maps?
episodes, but I haven't finished it.
Yes, it's called Hellier. It's a really I love the show. It's very good, and they talk a lot about that, the cave part of that, and that they believe those caves and stuff also go along
Chestnut.
the ley lines and stuff too.
Headley.
Main Street.
So we're like right here at my house. So Main Street's a ley line. Main Street, Medina. Is that what you're trying to tell me, Mark? With this,
I don't know.
And then
According
it
to
takes
that thing.
and then it takes a right down 31.
Let me see, because I will say, I was just gonna say there is this that thing? Yeah. All right. So click, you have to add data. So it's a weird app. Like at first I was like, what the hell? This is just roads. If you click add data and then you click ley lines. Okay, go away. You can do global ley lines, and then it will give you the big ones where it says like this is the Giza corridors, which is the main lines. You want to see them. And then you add another ley line, and then it gives you like the ley lines that intersect and stuff. And then you have to add the ley lines that you want, because there's so many ley lines that and it depends on who studied them and all that kind of stuff, that if you put all of the ley lines on there, it would be like one big blob and nobody could tell. So you have to like add the data that you want to see on your map.
Mm.
Well, when
Yeah.
I was looking at it for the property. I came across a site that had the ley line map for here, and that's when I said, "Oh my God, there's 2 intersect points on the property. That's why the energy there is so crazy."
Oh yeah. Any intersecting points for sure have some really interesting.
Yeah, we had that way back when I used to camp, and the people I used to practice where we camped on Jeff's father's old property, all kinds.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, really interesting. Palmyra was a huge spot too, and they're proud of the fact that they're a huge intersecting point, and they have all kinds of ghost activity and all that kind of stuff too. Okay, so having said all of that, again, believe if you want, don't believe if you want. It's okay either way. It's one of those things that
If it works for you, it works.
yes, if it works for you, it works exactly. So, however, Druids left no written accounts. The knowledge we have regarding early Druidic practices relies solely on legends passed down through the generations and on writings obtained from their conquerors. They are believed to have been prevented by doctrine from recording their knowledge in written form. Their beliefs and practices are tested in some detail by their contemporaries from other cultures, such as the Romans and the Greeks. Druids are engaged in things sacred, conduct the public and the private sacrifices, and interpret all matters of religion. That was one of the earliest writings from Julius Caesar in the 50s BC, after Rome invaded Gaul. So at one of their conquerors, Rome, Julius Caesar wrote about the Druids. The emperor noted their interest in astronomy, education, and valor, and their habit of sacrificing fellow Gauls to gain their god's favor by using wicker men stuffed with live men and set on fire.
Oh yeah, it was some brutal shit way back when.
Pretty legit.
Who's calling you?
Tim Bummer. I'm in the middle of class.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm sorry. Yes. So another a fact of history is that the Druids and many of the pagan sects started out doing human sacrifices, and there was a reason for it at the time. They felt that there was a reason for it, and that was part of their belief system.
That's some of that fear of the gods.
Yeah, exactly. Other Roman writers also fixated on the Druids' love of blood and gore. Pliny the Elder wrote of the Druids' appreciation for both mistletoe and human sacrifice. To murder a man was to do the highest act of devoutness. he wrote, and to eat his flesh was to secure the highest blessings of health. Tacitus even described a battle in Wales in which Druids covered their altars with the blood of captives and consulted their deities through human entrails. So the idea that Druids were all peaceful and Buddhist-like is not quite a fact.
That's just Ben.
Yeah, that's just Ben.
Do you think, Mama, that maybe part of, like they say, the little bit that we know, maybe also there was stuff written down by the Romans that kind of would make you want to fear the Druids and stuff? Do you feel like that kind of has that influence in there too? You know, like to make them look barbaric,
Absolutely,
and stuff like that.
For sure. Because again, and that's part of the problem is what we know of them there was no written record. So what we know came from their conquerors.
That's history in general, really.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. The pagan practitioners presented an existential threat to the Romans, who feared Druid power over the Celtic communities that Rome had conquered. Classicist Jane Webster suggests the Druids' apocalyptic visions and rites were seen as acts of resistance to Roman conquerors, who suppressed Druids and their rituals beginning with the reign of Augustus in 27 BC. The Christianity began to make inroads into France and the British Isles in the 1st century, and as the centuries progressed, it papered over many Celtic traditions, but Druids continued to pop up in medieval literature, suggesting that the pagan priests later became healers and magicians. Yet, since we have no written accounts from the pre-Christian Celts, it's virtually impossible to verify any historical claims about the Druids. Nonetheless, Druids have gone through several revivals over the millennia, including a Romantic era resurgence and a 21st century incarnation into modern Druidism. Though historians had come to dismiss the Romans' claims of the Druids' supposedly brutal religious tradition as overblown, and this is why, again, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, because a lot of historians started to say they don't think that there was actually sacrifices. And we don't actually think that there were sacrifices at that time, human sacrifices anyways. We think that's kind of overblown. Again, just what you said, Hexen, because they were their conquerors and they didn't want people to, practice Druidism.
There could have been like a little bit of human sacrifice for like really bad people.
And this is what says to me anyway, that it's got to be someplace in between. The controversy over their gruesome rituals was raised again, literally in 1984. That year, a peat cutter. So you know what peat moss is in Ireland? One of the peat cutters cut into and found human remains in Cheshire, England. This was no ordinary find. It was called the Lindau Man, as he became known, and he had been preserved in the bog because the bog has, all kinds of preserving chemicals and stuff in there. Well, natural chemicals. For nearly 2,000 years, he had apparently become a bog body after suffering head blows and being stabbed and strangled before being left for dead in the bog. His stomach contained mistletoe pollen, which led the contentious speculation that he was ritually sacrificed, perhaps by Druids, or that he himself was a Druid prince.
God, royalty.
Right? Yay.
He was probably like, I don't like England anymore. And they were like, what did he say?
What did he say? So that because of the amount of stab wounds and where they were placed and stuff, they think that it was definitely some kind of sacrificial rite that was done to the Lindau Man. The very word Druid comes from the ancient Gaelic dre wid, which is dream wise or tongue of the wood, depending upon what translation you use.
Splinters.
The mythical dryad, a fey creature bound to her tree, is another offshoot of the same word. And then in the notes, you'll be able to see, if you want to pass that around and show the camera too, that's a picture in 16 something in the 1700s. That was the first drawing known of the Wicker Man and the human sacrifices in the limbs of the Wicker Man. And they would kind of light it on fire
I did look into at one point the different types of spirits that can like form in certain areas, elemental spirits. So you got like your dryads and then your air spirits and stuff. And I guess water spirits are like
I love to think that they put that much detail in the head.
right.
We'll make it an exact human replication just for the head.
Can we make it with that much detail?
Get at it.
With a J on it.
Get to work, Mikey.
Yeah, we could try.
Maybe we started now.
Yeah.
Can we just cut Bobby's head off and put it there?
Wow, no, that is my initiate. I will defend him.
Did you see
Bobby's
the small
a
one I found?
He answers to Mikey.
I found this small one, which I kind of. I'll post a picture later on the Witchy Palooza thing.
No, Joe left.
Cool.
Did he?
Yeah, he's not there anymore.
Well, it's also.
No,
I
he's
can't
not.
flip it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I think Joe's been in and out because he was driving.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is a very, very, very basic history of the Druids. If Druidism is something you're interested in, that's one of the things that I have. I don't know, quite a few books. So let me know. We can find you a book to study up more.
We'll learn you.
We'll learn you up. So then we go to the Anglo-Saxon shamanism. It's kind of the next period here. In order to better understand the origins of Western magic, it's important to look at the Anglo-Saxon shamanism, where the Druids examined and quantified herbology and animal lore. The concept of animism grew in another direction as well, an offshoot of Neolithic animistic beliefs. Anglo-Saxon shamanism grew from about 4000 to 1000 BCE. It is the perception of life as an integral part of magic, and vice versa. Magic is an integral part of life. One principal foundation of shamanism, Anglo-Saxon shamanism.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
Yeah. Is the concept of word or weird. A lot of people pronounce it weird.
Because it's easier for them to distinguish it, I think.
Yeah.
To say it that way.
Yeah. Because if
It's
you're
just
saying
weird.
word, it's weird.
It's just
The Weird Sisters. Yeah.
Mhm.
So word was seen as the guiding force of life, yet not really a controlling force. Think of it this way. The word is like a rushing river, the current of life. A man in a small boat can ride the current going wherever it takes him, or he can row and steer, guiding his own path along the river, but not fighting it. Sometimes he has to negotiate the eddies and the swift currents. Surpassing these make him a better oarsman for his efforts. If he tries to fight it, to row against the current, he will exhaust himself, getting nowhere. The river
Runs through it.
The river runs through it. The river, the word, affects all who touch it. If a man tries to dam up or redirect the river, he affects the lives of every plant and animal along its course. The word feeds, supports, and guides all living things. So again, this is when I talk about the word of connection. That is the concept of that connection. It's a deeper thing that I don't really get into very much because it's such a deep concept that it can confuse it a little. But it's like when the Norns are weaving the direction of your life, that kind of thing. It's the current of your life, that there is a current of your life that is somewhat predestined, but we are able to move things around if we need to, knowing that will affect every other connection along the way.
There's room for free will.
So sorry, go ahead, Courtney.
Oh, I wonder if the spelling has to do with the word wired.
Interesting thought.
Yeah.
That's a very cool thought, Courtney.
You have wired connections.
Yeah.
That's possible.
So
What's that,
is the Weird Sisters another name for the Norns?
No, the Weird
Should
Sisters
be.
are actually authors. I'm not. they are a whole set of books that are a lot of pagans, Hexen and I's age used to read because they explained things in a way that we could understand. I think it's actually fictional.
Yes, I think so. I think there's a reference to the Norns, and I think they're very much they're also linked to the three witches in Macbeth and all that. So they have like a little bit of both, but I think they're more like fictional. I don't think we really have. I have to look into it because I know I've read into it someplace, but I don't think there's like they're written. There's a history on them or anything like that as deities or anything like that. You know.
No, definitely not. It's a modern version of stuff. I believe it's like a fictional kind of explanation maybe for the way that things are so that we could understand it a little bit better because it's such an out there kind of concept that it's kind of hard to conceptualize. So it was through fictional stories, I think, that they helped to learn us up.
Well, the fictional stories can really help sometimes.
Yeah, hell yeah, absolutely.
Because there's Courtney might be interested in this because of Rain, and anybody else that's watching that has kids in their lives. There's a animated movie called The Weird Sisters. You can find the whole thing on YouTube, and I love it. It's definitely a kids movie, but it has like
make it a cartoon.
Yeah, it's a cartoon, and it's one of my favorite drinking movies. But I highly recommend it for like, witches with kids.
Cool.
You big ass.
Yeah.
I have to look it up.
There's like a few classes and stuff that she can take in Akron and Alden too for like nature-based preschools. And I was looking into those too for a little bit.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
I mean,
That is so cool. I can't believe they made it into it. I didn't know they made it into a cartoon. That's awesome.
Worst case
Well,
scenario.
I don't know if it's based off of the books or if it just has the Weird Sisters as the name, but it's
gotta be. It's called, and it's called. I mean, it's spelled WYRD.
yeah. I think it's by Discworld.
I'm gonna look it up. What is it? The Weird
It's-
Girl?
The Weird Sisters. You can find the whole thing on YouTube. That's where I watch it.
That
There
is
it
awesome.
is.
I so have to.
Oh, cool. It's like 2 hours long.
Yeah, it's like a full-on movie, and there are definitely some parts, but they have the Maiden Mother Crone aspect to it. They have some actual witchy bits in it, but it's definitely a kid story.
When I think, Mikey, that's a lot has to do with it.
Probably with a giant.
It's a way they incorporated the Maiden Mother and Crone, but at the same time as the weavers of the web. So it has a lot to do with that.
Okay.
Okay, so the word feeds, supports, and guides all living things. There are two other perceptions of the word. One, it is not seen as linear progression. Like time, rather, it's all-encompassing, eternal, yet instant. Chronological perception of the word is not yesterday, today, and tomorrow, but a state of constant now. What time is it? It is now. And two, it is a guiding but not controlling force of a person's destiny. If a person abandons a well-paying job to join the Peace Corps because it feels like it is his calling, that is his word. Likewise, a person who flies to Madagascar on a whim is following his word. It is a calling that cannot be denied. To do so would likely cause sickness and depression, because again, it would change the course of what his connections are supposed to be going towards. Word has two forms in modern usage. To understand the meaning of an item is to give it a label. We call it word, W-O-R-D. And to know something beyond normal perception is often described as being weird, as in the Weird Sisters in Shakespeare's Macbeth. Modern witches use the wisdom of the Anglo-Saxon shamanism and the word to better understand W-Y-R-D word. That's probably why they pronounce it weird. You're right. To better understand the flow of magic in their lives and in recognizing their place in the cosmos. Incidentally, there is an excellent modern interpretation of the word. Jedi Knights call it the Force.
Yeah.
And what the hell was I just gonna say? God, I hate that. Hold on. In the words, better understand, flow, and recognize their place in the cosmos. Macbeth.
Star Wars: The Force.
I lost it.
And that's a whole other wormhole attaching that to the Force.
Oh, I knew what it was. That it's funny because it's Hexen and I are from the not that we're so much older, but because we have been studying for so long that we're in the age where pronunciation was very different for most people than it is now. Like we actually can say, although that's one of the things that you can't necessarily say what it was pronounced like, but it's one of those things though that we never had to worry about pronunciation because we were reading stuff all the time.
Yeah, it was in your own head.
Yeah.
We weren't saying it out loud because we didn't talk to anybody about it. I certainly wasn't teaching, and I didn't ever hear people say that word ever until.
Yeah. I would only, what we would only get is the pronunciation usually from the book if the author was good enough to give you a type of pronunciation for it, then you would have the word and then the pronunciation next to it. So that's what I would go by, the pronunciation I learned.
No, he means WORD.
Yeah.
Like you would read and see the word.
Yeah.
And
the word.
Pronunciation of that word.
And then you'd have to know how to read the phonetic.
Well, my poetic
and say the phonetic.
The poetic eddas that I have give you the pronunciation of the words in the very beginning of the book because different letters are pronounced differently. So in the very beginning, they're like, "Don't fuck it up, stupid," and I'm like, "You guys."
Oh, that's awfully nice of them.
Yeah, and that's also
well,
not
and it's hard. It's hard. Some of them is hard.
Yeah, we have
Some
like
of them are
no
hard.
knowledge on Nordic anything. Like we're just fucking sending it.
So how are they?
Well, because again, it goes back to all of this stuff where we only know from conquerors.
Yes.
And there was no written history.
Yeah.
So
So
we're
how
just like,
they
we're
know
gonna hop
how
around the
they
country and fuck bitches.
pronounce
That's all I know.
Yeah. Okay. How are we doing on time? Oh my God. Jesus.
Yeah, but this is still a good class, Jen.
We're okay. This is interesting.
I so thought I was going to get this. All right. Keep going.
Stop looking at it.
I know it.
Yeah, it's not going to go back.
While the Druids were harvesting mistletoe in the West, now we're going to switch and kind of talk about the northern religions. And the Wiki were honoring the Lord and Lady in the East. Another force was growing in the North. The Norse culture first grew around 2000 BCE as nomadic tribes ventured further north. They were following the path of the wolf, who was following the path of the caribou, who was following the primal call of survival. Some people settled into what is now Germany and Norway. Others ventured even further. The Germanic peoples who settled in the northern reaches developed a lifestyle suited to the cold, harsh environment. And the gods they carried with them likewise evolved. From the wise, caring father figure came Odin, a harsh but loving father, and Thor, a god of the furious elements of the weather. Other deities came as well. Freya, who embraces both passion. No. Why?
I love when it doesn't listen. Or when my phone rings and it doesn't show me that I have a call coming in.
I hate that.
And it's just ringing. I'm like, well, I can't do anything.
I can't do anything about it. I hate that. Yeah, that happens to me too. Other deities came as well. Freya, who embraces both the passion of life and love and the fury of war. Balder,
the golden child,
the god of music and justice, and many others. Loki, often mistakenly perceived as evil, is a trickster god who shows us the dangerous and malevolent face in all aspects of life.
Loki's just living his best life.
Yeah.
Loki's the greatest ever.
He is definitely mischievous.
We're not.
I am.
In Norse spirituality, there are two assemblies. The Aesir, which includes the greater gods and goddesses who rule the affairs of mankind, and the Vanir, which includes the lesser gods, earth-related spirits, the cycles of nature and fertility. The Aesir reside in Valhalla, Hall of the Gods, which lies across Bifrost, the bridge of the Northern Lights. The Valkyrie, warrior handmaidens of Freya, bring the souls of the fallen warriors to reside for eternity in Valhalla. The Norse counterpart to the witches are the Asatru, whose name means loyalty to the Aesir. They primarily worship the Aesir and honor the Vanir in the same way Catholics might honor the saints. The Asatru do not hold Sabbats, but they join in an annual event called the... Yep, I used to know how to pronounce this. The Aethling, I think. A celebration of the gods and of man's achievements. And that's literally like... There's so much with the Norse part too that we're not going to go into it. I think I have 4, 5, 6 different Norse books that if you're interested in that part of the history, you can get into that part.
You do also have to be careful with like the Nordic stuff because people might pin you as
white supremacists.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can't call yourself anything other than like you have to go by Norse paganism now. Otherwise, they're like, "Oh, you hate me."
Let me go backwards though. You can call yourself whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
And reclaim the fact that Asatru does not mean white asshole.
I mean, we can.
Are they using that now?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
They've been using runes forever. I have a rune tattooed on my neck, and one of the guys at the place I used to work at thought it was a swastika.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then my gay fabulous ass was like, honey,
No.
gotta explain something to you real quick.
Yeah, that's been an issue for quite some time now. That I know a lot of the heathens, they call themselves heathens, and now people are trying to reclaim that too. Are trying to really, step up and say that is not what we all believe. That's bullshit, and we do not all believe that. That's like them trying to use our religion as an excuse to be assholes.
That's regardless of the politics of the situation that I'm going to talk about. But the guy who wore the Viking helmet when they crashed Congress, and then people were saying, "Oh, well, he followed," and they're like, "No, we don't claim that bastard."
Well, and there's
he just is doing it for fun.
In the movement now. There's also some of them that are calling themselves Asatru.
Well, that's what we were just saying.
And it's like, they're using the word and not
we're
really.
just doing a class, but come on in.
Sorry.
That's okay. Ty, you can't jump.
Hi, buddy. How are you?
Ty. You big horse.
That's
I'm gonna
horse.
eat real quick. Oh, Ty, no, don't jump on her.
Hi, buddy.
Ty.
Hi,
And now. Hey.
Hi, buddy.
Hey, quit jumping. Big moose. She doesn't want to play tug of war with you. She doesn't want to play tug of war. No, she doesn't want to play.
Sit still for more than 30 seconds.
Go play with Robbie. He can play tug of war. You're moving the carpeting. How you feeling, Kim? Okay, I got the damn pick line out. That's great. Yes. Feels like you're finally on the mend, like in the right direction. Good. Yeah, it's tough.
Give me 1 second, guys, sir.
None of us care. Ty thinks it's a play break.
You want to get out?
Right? Break away.
You need permission? The nurse called, but she was supposed to come last night to take the pick line out. She was
Right? I bet.
Oh, jeez.
It was supposed to come
I want it fair and square, Ty. Come on, stop cheating.
Yeah.
Didn't put the order in. So I was calling them and they're like, he's out of the country. I'm like, there's something.
Hi, honey. Is Dad there?
Yeah. Right.
Because I ran out of
Mine.
on Wednesday.
Okay.
Do me a favor
There's
and
nothing going
run
in.
outside and ask him if he can come in and
There's
check
another
out
track of
Kim.
infection possible.
Yeah.
my class.
I'm like, I've had enough.
Yeah, it's an opening.
Which is why
I'm like,
I need
either
you.
you guys pull it or I'm pulling it myself.
Yeah.
I said, I've been taught
I
to
know,
do it.
I mean,
I can do it.
Yeah. Don't make me use what I know.
Don't make me. I said, either you call me back or I'm calling Board of Health. Well, they were on the phone.
Good for you. You have to sometimes, though.
I'm like, I've had enough of this shit.
Well, that's Mark had an echo done, and they had put the results up and made it sound really bad. And so he was freaking out, thinking he was back to like his heart issues that he used to have. And they're like, "Oh, sorry, your doctor's out of town." Well, someone needs to explain this to him because the man's living in a panic attack.
Exactly.
Like,
You can't make people live like that.
I understand he's out of town.
The only thing that isn't in here is the migraine roller because it was on the bucket and I haven't made it yet. I will make it up today and send it out to you free of charge.
Or I can drop it off sometime or something.
Yeah, or we can drop it off or we'll figure it out, I promise.
All right.
It's sitting on there and I just haven't gotten to it since we went on vacation.
Okay, I'm not worried about it.
You're all set.
Everybody knows where I live. And I'm not going anywhere because he's got my car tore apart. I'm like,
No fun.
woo! Oh, my butt's turning.
The door handle just got fresh with Kim.
Damn. Haven't done anything in a while.
Woohoo!
Day 173.
I know, Rich is like, it's been. I'm like,
Don't even breathe.
if you want to even keep that,
Right?
Don't say it. Your shoelace is untied. Don't trip.
Yeah.
No tripping allowed.
Aw.
I got it. You
Are
stay
you
there.
sure? 'Cause
I just
can't
don't
bend
want.
over. I can't bend over. All right. Thank you.
We all look out for each other.
I'm glad to see you out and
Yes,
about.
I am glad
Me
to see
too.
everybody here.
Well,
This
the
is
dog
Yeah.
originally did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Courtney came and see me with the little one the other day, and I was
Aw.
like, yes, it made my day. I was like,
I bet.
Yes, I know you smell my terrors.
Yeah.
All right.
Ty was sure Kim wanted to play.
The planning meeting soon. I don't know if you wanted to be involved with the planning part of it. I can't
Yes,
remember.
definitely.
I was going to ask.
Okay.
you.
Definitely.
All right. So we'll get
Yeah,
that
I got
involved.
stuff set aside. If you guys are going to start doing like an option to raise money, I got stuff set aside.
Awesome.
So
I'll shoot you a message. Thanks, honey. I appreciate it.
all right, you guys have fun.
Enjoy your day out and about.
Yeah.
Courtney, I half match you.
Go home.
I
Take a
know,
nap.
I saw
But only half because I have laundry to put away, and so I went
You know
with
what?
the
Me
two,
too.
the two
Rain-
that like were close.
Rain doesn't have a single pair of underwear, so I was just like, she got
Bye-bye, honey.
me
All right. Sorry, guys.
Oh, we all like Kim. It's
You're
okay.
fine.
I know. I just
At
feel
least it
bad,
was
like,
Kim. It wasn't like
I
Michael
know. At the
showing
same
up or
time,
something.
like I tried to say like, so we're live on YouTube and stuff because I don't know. I'm like, do you realize?
yeah,
that
so that
it's-
she knows.
Yeah. I don't know
I
if
get
she
that.
realizes that it's on
She's
there.
probably like us, where like nobody's gonna see it's her. She's
I
not
know,
tagged
right?
in it.
I
She's not.
know. Where am I?
Poor Kim's had a rough go lately.
Yes, she really has. Poor thing. Okay. Okay. So where's it? All right. Northern religions. Okay. So that is Norse. Lastly, and I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm going to break it up into two separate classes since we're going to be doing classes more anyways. I'm going to cover one last topic, and then Mikey, the topic of the burning times and stuff, that's going to be another class.
That's fine. That's perfect.
Took longer than I was expecting, and I pared down a whole lot, damn it.
But
It's
we
all
also
good.
have all had input and thoughts to.
Yeah. And it's okay. It like actually was separated into two before, but I thought I can add those together, and yeah, that was silly.
I mean, not to
Silly,
speak for everyone,
silly.
but like I would rather split it in two and cover all the stuff that we want to than
Right.
try and rush.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so raising huge monuments along the banks of the Nile, the people of Egypt lived in the blazing heat of the sun, survived annual floodings, drought, and famine. Their pantheon reflected their lifestyle. Ra, the sun god, watched over all. Isis, the goddess of life, was the provider, and Osiris judged one's soul upon death. Bastet and Sekhmet were twin goddesses who used cats as their messengers. Kings, pharaohs, and the wealthy were mummified upon death. to ensure they would prosper in the afterlife. Many of the gods of Egypt were derived from the gods of other cultures. Indeed, such deity trading was common all over the Mediterranean, from Brittany to Assyria. Aphrodite, for example, can be found wearing many different names in many different lands. So while the Egyptian culture had no real influence over Northern or over European wiki at the time, their spirituality and mysteries have left an impression on people for centuries. Many mystics and magical practitioners have studied, emulated, and adopted aspects of the Egyptian religions. From the latter half of the 19th century, ancient Egypt has awed and inspired people all over the world, and many modern Wiccans and pagans have adopted their gods as readily as any other. Some of us here have adopted their gods too. The Grecian civilization began in the fields and hills, and again, I have Egyptian books about
Egyptian books?
Yeah.
Never.
Yes.
I didn't know you were just an Egyptian at all.
Yeah, hard to tell, right?
Absolutely. You hide it so well.
Yes, I do. The Grecian civilization began in the fields and hills overlooking the Aegean Sea, and from 3000 to 1000 BCE, they grew and prospered in a mostly peaceful nature. They waged war upon neighbors only when negotiation was impossible, or to defend Grecian lands and interests. The Greek pantheon reflects this, and they had many gods and goddesses of wisdom, music, wine, motherhood, and so on, but only one, Ares, was devoted specifically to warfare. Athena, mother of Athens, took arms only to defend her city. By 500 BCE, Athens was regarded as the center of the civilized world, and the Grecian influence spread from Spain to India. Philosophy, reason, and revelry were the order of the day, and the Greek pantheon was revered and honored, which is funny. That is really why, if you look up, if you start when you're like in the beginning phases of your spiritual path here with the old ways, and you start looking up gods and goddesses, 90% of what you will find in the beginning is all Grecian. It's all Greek gods and goddesses, which is okay. I follow some of them also, but it's funny that they were not as big as many of the other gods and goddesses that and the pantheons that we have talked about already, but because they spread further.
They've also renamed some of the Egyptian deities as well. Like Isis is actually the Roman name. Her Egyptian name would have been Aset, and then Anpu would have been Anubis. Anubis is actually his Greek name, and his Egyptian name is Anpu. So it's actually really, really cool how they just basically almost rewrit certain things, to their advantage, I guess, and stuff like that.
Well,
which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
Where do you think the Christians got it from?
Yeah, where do you think the Christians got it from? That continued further and further as we go through history. That the Christians did that a whole lot too, which is what we'll talk about next time, is because that's a whole nother topic.
My Egyptian altar, I have a representation of Anubis, but I also have another one for Anpu. Since that's his original name, so
I like
try
that.
and keep it balanced.
Like all encompassing of the of that entity as a whole.
Hell yeah.
I like that.
That's why it's funny I don't follow Bast or Bastet, but I have a Bastet because it's Sekhmet's duality. It's her twin.
Mm-hmm. See, but I don't identify with Saint Bridget at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That one I don't feel like I'm leaving something out. I feel like I'm leaving something that they try to bastardize out.
Yeah, I agree.
Versus an inclusion.
If you follow the Avalonian path of that, it talks a lot about that too. So and I know I don't think I pulled my Avalonian, but I might have some of my Avalonian books if you want to read some of them too. Yes. On the eastern shores of the Mediterranean, Hebrew scholars began putting together a magical system known as the Kabbalah, essentially a combination of philosophy, science, magic, and mysticism, and it has been evolving over the centuries. The Kabbalah, Hebrew for doctrines received from tradition, employs secret knowledge and philosophies not revealed to the masses. According to legend, the framework of the Kabbalah was taught by Jehovah to a group of angels who gave it to man after his fall from grace. Moses is said to have taught the Kabbalah to 70 elders during the Exodus, and it was passed down as an oral tradition from and then until the 8th century when it was finally written down. The Kabbalah states that God is all things, good, evil, day, night, male, female, within and without. It represents the organized pattern of the universe, which can be deciphered through the mysteries of letters and numbers. It is a roadmap, in a sense, the path by which God created the universe and the 3 pillars by which man can achieve divinity. The pillars represent masculine or mercy, spirit or gentleness, and feminine or judgment. Other interconnecting lines exist as well, and together 72 combinations represent the mysteries of the universe. So that's 72 is a big deal in the Kabbalah. It's they're sacred numbers.
Milo, if you want to go outside and wander around or something, you can.
Isn't there 72 angels?
No, there's 72 names.
Angel name? Is it 72?
72 names of God.
Yeah.
Oh, names of God. Okay, there you go.
Through the Middle Ages, the Kabbalah was studied by alchemists hoping to unlock the secrets of life and by mystics hoping to reach divinity. Because of its Hebrew origin and the use of magic and esoteric philosophies, the medieval church often assumed it to be evil. Of course they did. It was thus associated with heathen Jews and witches. Many witches use the Kabbalah and incorporate its patterns into their own studies. Indeed, the tarot, which has 72 cards, and the Kabbalah complement each other quite nicely. I have books on alchemy, on ancient alchemy, and how we had brought it forward today too. I have lots of books.
Shocking.
So that is where we're going to end for today. Because that's a lot of information. Again, I will have all of these notes for you because the homework will kind of go through what we've gone through. It's not going to be, the last homework was probably the toughest homework of the entire thing because it did have kind of specific questions about a couple of the concepts because those concepts were so important to everything else. It's like the building blocks to everything else we're going to do from here. They were like specified questions and stuff. The questions from here, I may have a couple that are like specific, but there'll be pretty big concepts that shouldn't be. It's not meant to be hard. It's meant to invoke you to explore what you believe and, how you believe in stuff too.
So, Mama, the bit that I have might actually tie in pretty well because we talked about Exodus and that's where the verse is from.
Beautiful. Yeah, you can go. Click on Mikey. Oh, wait, before you go, I just want to say the word for this homework, which will be the last question again, is heathen. Not that now I really feel like we don't really have to do that, but I'm going to do it anyway because maybe down the line.
Not bad practice for the future.
Yeah.
It made me laugh when I submitted it to Joe, and he's like, "You are not a motherfucker.
You are not a motherfucker."
Or I was like, "Yeah, asshole." No, maybe motherfucker.
Stop. I'm trying to do it, and you're moving it around.
All right.
Woo! Look at us staring at Mikey.
Hey,
Hi, Mikey.
Hey. All right.
Look, nobody's going to think Mikey and I are together anymore. He cut off all his hair color.
I know, but now my natural highlights glisten in the sun, so it's okay.
At the psychic fair, somebody actually thought Mikey and I were a couple.
Ryan asked me, he was like, "Can we dye our hair together?" And I was like, "I'm obsessed."
Yeah. The lady's like, "Well, you have the same hair color." And I'm like, wow. First I'm having a baby with Joe, and now I'm dating Mikey.
It's a complicated family tree we weave.
Yeah, those New York bitches.
I brought the West Virginia with me.
I don't know. You could have.
It's like the family tree that goes like this.
Yeah.
It's a stick.
The only reason why they had us learn geometry was to learn some Virginia ancestor trees.
It's not surroundings. Okay. So we've been talking about different cultures, and now we're kind of starting to talk about the church and how they changed everything. So I kind of want to talk, before we talk about how the burning times and before Orthodox Christianity was started, there have been archaeological discoveries of pre-Orthodox Christian magic that would actually incorporate, it was kind of, I can't remember if they were found in Alexandria or not, but they would not only invoke Christ, but they would totally mix pantheons. I believe there were curses written in blood on human rib bones that invoked Anubis. There were others that invoked Greek deities. So before Orthodox Christianity, like Christianity at its roots was a deeply magical practice, and it kind of ties into Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. So I thought that was really, what were some other examples? There was one discovery of of necromancy, and there was another one between two Christian monks that it was a same-sex love spell. So before the church was the church,
there was gay people back then. Ew.
I know.
Oh
Imagine what? You're not some sort of millennial liberal construction. Oh my god. So anyway, I lost my train of thought now.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm the teacher.
What do you think you're doing, heckling Joe's live?
I know, right?
So before the Orthodox Christianity came through, it was actually pretty, maybe not common, but it was not at all unheard of to blend things together, very much like you see in today's Christian magic. So it's almost like a return back to that. It's almost like it's getting its own resurgence in a way. And then since we talked about Exodus is the book of the Bible that has the infamous "you shall not suffer a witch to live" verse in it. And that has been misinterpreted. Especially recently. And especially with our next subject. So this is kind of a good segue into that, I guess. The original word, I forgot the original word. The original word, first off, it's the second book of the Bible. All these books were attributed to Moses, thought Moses was the author, but there are a bunch of events that, like, actual historical events in there that took place after Moses was supposed to live. So that's also not true. That's just a little fun fact. And then the actual, that's Amber Fire King from the 1940s.
Yeah, we know what that is. I was alive then. Shoot.
Yeah, right. It's just brown glass.
Mikey, quick question.
I was like,
brown glass.
Is Moses one of the because I know there's isn't there a part where they say that, like, some of them, of the writers, right, they lived more than like regular human years? Is Moses one of them?
Oh, I mean, well, that's the entire Old Testament. I mean, Adam and Eve lived to be like 800. Even though they were supposed to die right after they ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge, but that didn't happen because Yahweh's a fucking liar. But okay, we're going to go off on that. The original word used in Exodus for the 22:18 was Makashaba. Makashaba, I think that was pronounced, and it is specifically for, and it's weird. It's a gender-specific word, so it's for a female practitioner of only black magic. So it's not, Wiccans and healers and New Ageists and pagans in general. It's strictly bitches that are out there to fuck up your shit. Because, like Mama just said, they were also constructing and using Kabbalah, which is a Jewish tradition, and Exodus is part of the Old Testament, so that was all Jewish history. So I just thought that was an interesting little translation where it was basically just evil spiritual person, not just anybody that isn't Christian.
And I love that they. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No,
I
you're
love that they acknowledge the existence of magic there too.
Yeah, right. Magic's not real, but here it is.
Yeah.
So
It was for a minute.
Yeah, for a second,
but not anymore.
but no.
And it's also really interesting that it's specifically female practitioners because, I mean, 3 male magi visited Jesus when he was born. So 3 magicians.
They've always
there.
hated most women.
But they had penises,
Yeah.
so it was okay.
Right. Well, this
And
just
pockets, probably.
it's just darkness. It's just like stuff for pestilence and to fuck people's lives up. So if you were like a female healer, you're fine.
As a female,
Yeah.
I would practice black magic against a stupid motherfucker.
Yeah, but here's the thing:
Oh,
you
agreed.
could be a healer, and if you can't heal someone of something, like they have something terminal, then they determine, oh well, that's black
Bad
magic.
witch.
Yeah.
Well, you clearly killed that person.
Right. So no, I hear it. It's not, you know, it doesn't make it a good verse, but it completely changes it from being anti-magic to still, you know, still horribly misogynistic.
Yeah.
But
We're
it's a
just saying as
completely
women, we don't buy
different-
it.
What's that?
We're just saying as women, we don't buy it.
No, I hear you. And that's kind of what I'm saying is it doesn't make it a good verse or a better verse or really make it any less awful, but it's just a different kind of awful because it's been used to encapsulate every sort of spiritual path recently that isn't a traditional religion or an Abrahamic faith, which is just not true.
I mean, if they want to fear me,
Right?
complaining.
Fear the vajayjay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not how they use it. Do
I
not
can choke-
suffer a witch to live. They're trying to use that to literally murder us.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Which is crazy because we have the Witch of Endor. Come on.
Right?
I can show them the vagina to be
You
afraid
know,
of, can I?
wait, was it Samuel? Wait, Samuel? Yes? Am I wrong? Wait, am I wrong?
I don't want to know.
Samuel?
Vagina with teeth.
Is it Samuel? Samuel?
It's not the movie though.
Oh.
Samuel,
Mikey, is
what?
it Samuel that that seeks the Witch of Endor? Is it him?
I'm not sure.
Samuel? Or I forgot. Or no, because Solomon's something else. But I think it's Samuel or something like that.
Solomon?
Solomon? Is it Solomon?
Don't quote me though. It's been a while. I'm behind on my Bible study.
That was sent to me last night. We went,
But
ah!
I always found that kind of like, okay, so you don't suffer a witch to live, but then you have this person that went and looked for a witch for assistance on spiritual to revive the king or whatever. Like, really?
Yeah.
It doesn't
It was-
get better the
It
longer.
was Saul.
Some intense Arby's sandwiches you're
So,
selling.
it was who?
Saul.
Reuben.
Saul. Okay.
Fear the Reuben.
Sorry, we got on a tangent and Courtney just killed me.
The root. I don't want to know.
Yeah, no, really don't.
No, you don't.
Can I scar the case?
No.
Honestly, I kind of think Mikey would want to see it.
No, he
like,
wouldn't.
are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I feel like it would pique his interest.
Let's do it when it's not class time.
Somebody goes back to look.
This
into
I
the
know. I was gonna
class
say
and now
2
they
years
see
from
it's
now they're
too-
gonna be like, "Are you kidding me? What were they talking about?" Yeah. Mhm.
Very professional.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
You're the founding people we have to follow. The rest of our religious creed. They're talking about eating.
Yes.
In 2 millennia, they'll be looking back on our circle.
What the hell are they talking about? Yeah.
Arby's has the meats, y'all.
Anyways, so is that it?
That was it, because I mean it was just a complete it was a mistranslation, then kind of Hexen stole my next point on Saul, but
God,
or the Witch of Endor, but I was gonna look into that for the next class.
There's been a
Cool.
lot of mistranslations, though. I mean,
yeah.
really,
A ton.
Yeah.
A ton for
Yeah.
sure.
that could lead to just about all kinds of different.
Well, I mean, there's a ton of magic, and I mean, look at what the fucking New Testament is about. It's about Jesus going around and healing people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And raising people from the dead and
yeah,
turning water to wine and all kinds of
And
Which
feeding,
energy.
feeding them of his body and
Yeah.
blood.
All I know
Yeah.
about the Bible is you can smoke it.
What the hell?
Yeah, I've heard that
You use
too.
the papers to roll.
Oh yeah.
Come on, baby.
Energy manipulation and there's all kinds of witchcraft in there. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any questions on anything we've covered today? I'm sorry that I kept going and going and going. I meant to give you a break somewhere in between, but I got lost.
We got a break when Kim came.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Ty even got to play.
Yeah.
It was grand.
Yeah,
And I think we asked her questions during.
yeah, that's true.
It's a very inclusive environment when we have these conversations, which is nice. We kind of bounce stuff off.
Even Milo's included.
Sadly.
Anybody have a book like a subject that they want me to look for right off the bat?
I guess just more on the Kabbalah because I know a little bit about it, but not a whole bunch.
Okay, I do have.
Mikey, I have something that you can borrow that you might enjoy because it's a Kabbalah book, but it merges like dark and light side of the Kabbalah. I don't know, it merges it with like
like the
craft and stuff like that.
Yeah, like the tree and roots of life or something like that kind of deal.
Let me get it.
Is that what it is, Mama? Is that what that was? It was it's the tree of life, and then is it the roots or something? Exactly.
It's like the as above, so below thing. It's
that.
So this is the
roots underneath the yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that.
So Mikey, this covers different topics of the Kabbalah, including history, reformers of the trees, major organizations. It goes from Golden Dawn all the way to the Dragon Rouge. So you get like different aspects of it, like I guess angelic and demonic kind of. They incorporate that.
All right.
I haven't really, and they incorporate it with the tarot. I haven't really delved into this book, but I can send it to you so you can borrow it.
Okay, because I want to try and combine it with overlaying the runes over it and see what pathways those are. Oh shoot, what are they called? Whatever, it's fine. We'll talk later.
You know what I was also thinking? I wonder if the word has anything to do with mycelium from mushrooms.
Oh, totally.
It's like the.
Oh hell yeah!
I love you, Courtney.
Everything, and so is mycelium. So I wonder if we've already found it and we just aren't acknowledging it yet.
I don't know what you're even saying.
Well,
Mushroom stuff
Could
that almost
enhance the
Talking mushroom.
like connection, power.
If you go into the movie Avatar, where they talk about that connection that there is throughout all beings and the whole planet.
Trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, that's a good example.
I always loved that. Was one of my favorite parts of it. Is I felt like it was a very like.
Yeah, that's a good example of that.
Wonder when
I've
Avatar
never
Trees
watched it.
finally come out.
Yeah.
But I think we all feel the word. You know, like when you meet someone and you just connect.
Yeah,
You know,
December
there's always a
16th.
reason behind that. It's something that has that connection between the two of you.
December 16th.
Okay.
I'm definitely going to watch it.
So I just wanted to point out a couple books. I'm not going through all of these, don't worry. But that I feel anyway, after having read a lot, because I enjoy the history part of stuff, having read a lot of historical, books about paganism and where it came from and stuff. There's a couple that I think if you're at all interested in would be a good idea to read, which the first one is called The Chalice and the Blade. It's a book by Rianne Esler. I think it came out in the 80s, but is such to me, this is like Paganism 101. This is one that is very good and goes into a lot of detail about, why we believe what we believe and where that belief came from and, what they were thinking at the time when they started that, belief system. So that is to me, that's one of the essential pagan starter books is The Chalice and the Blade. If you're at all interested in the history of stuff, is to start with that one. And I will tell you, Ronald Hutton is an incredible author, as far as I'm concerned, about paganism and where like the European paganism came from. And this one is the pagan religions of the ancient British Isles. He has another one that I have and I couldn't find right now. It's bigger.
Have that downloaded.
And it is something similar. I had to, if you look on my, I know it's on my Goodreads. But Ronald Hutton as an author has several books about the history of paganism in Europe, and his writings are really good too. So, and again, I have tons. I have Druid books. I have the history of Druid books. I have all kinds of pantheons. I have fucking Gerald Pervert Gardner's Witchcraft Today, which is like what he believes and why. When I was coming together with my library, there was books that I wanted to make sure I had, because especially before the internet, it was really important to have, where we came from and why we have.
Well, thinking about that, can you imagine telling the ancient Druids about the internet? And like them, seeing that information is just so easily passed between each other. Not only written down, but just boom, it's at the other side of the world.
Right. It's funny. Well, I won't say this on the live. I might say it when we end the live. All right. So no questions. I will have the homework together for you definitely by Tuesday. And I would like to try to have the next class within a couple weeks or so. I don't know, your schedule is the one that is so iffy, although maybe it's getting better now.
It's getting better.
Woohoo!
So,
for you.
Let me know within either 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, or when the next Saturday seems to work pretty good for most people, I think. Yes.
We're open completely on
I
our.
didn't do anything.
Yeah, I think Saturdays.
I'm okay as long as this week we planned it out. I'm perfectly fine. I'm okay.
So it looks like the weekend of the 30th, I would be off, which is in 3 weeks.
That's
Three
my
weeks.
birthday.
So the weekend of
It's your birthday.
that's your birthday.
That's April 30th.
That's
You don't
also
wanna do this for
that's
your
I
also
don't.
belting. The start of belting.
It's April 30th. Oh my God. No, Beltane is not coming up that quick. Psh, everyone be quiet. No.
Wait,
That's
3
not happening.
weeks already? Wow.
Fuck. Beltane is in 3 weeks. How did that happen?
Yeah, my altar's
Yeah.
like, bitch, what are you doing?
You're
Take the glory
belting.
off of me.
You're belting.
I haven't
crazy
done
on the phone.
anything on my altar.
I know I
Me
saw those
neither.
start. I mean,
Yeah.
I've shoved all my Beltane stuff over there so I can switch it over hopefully tomorrow. But yeah, I haven't started.
Courtney's birthday.
Okay, so we are going to be doing a Beltane ritual though on the 30th. And again,
Unless we're doing it
none
on-
of the rituals are required. You don't.
Right.
Are we doing it the evening of the 30th?
Yes.
Not like the day of the first.
No, it'll be the evening of the 30th.
Okay.
I'll probably be out dinner, but I'll tune in on my YouTube afterwards, so I can do it anyway.
It's okay, no problem. I understand.
Yeah, that's understandable.
How
How
we'll
fun-
talk about it then. We'll talk about it and figure out the next class then as soon as we can. We may do it in 2 weeks then, and you might have to watch it on the thing, but we'll see. All right, I'm gonna end this, but nobody go anywhere because we're gonna have the meeting afterwards. Mel and them are heading out, but
Well, yeah.
thanks. I'm just gonna end the broadcast. We'll all still be here.
So we can still.
And-
So we should still hit stream.